Are you speaking in tongues?
I am the great Cornholio.
I can't believe.
I want TP for my...
I can't believe your daughter didn't know what that was.
She has never seen that cartoon. Thank the Lord above.
Yeah, there's so many things out there that we should not subject our children to.
I can't believe that we weren't able to do a live stream. You abandoned me last week, and so did Sure Shot.
Work calls.
I know.
And
you got a new job, dude.
You're not paying us a whole lot on these live streams. So.
Yeah. So, as people start coming here
on a Tuesday, morn.
Yep. Yo. So normally, you guys are going to have to totally dispense grace because here, Mr. Butler's, Tommy, no sure shot. No sure shot.
Sorry.
Well, we could just pretend. I mean,
I don't have a fake beard to just.
I got a beard and I'm going to be grumpy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh. Sure Shot's going to watch us later and be like, "What? I'm not grumpy.
I'm never grumpy.
God, what are you talking about?" Hey, Warrior, did you hear about the news with Arnold? Yeah, I did. I actually watched that whole video, and then that prompted me to watch Mobile Gamer's video. And
is this something regarding the game that I don't play?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was, people quit and they spend a lot of money in the game. So what they do is sometimes they'll give their account. They're like, I don't want it to just mothball. So they give their account to somebody and let them play it, because why not? You spent all the money on it. Sure, it's yours. You really should. Technically, it's a violation of terms of service.
Somebody didn't do the work and they just got all that crap for free.
Arnold had an account that he was utilizing for the community to be able to showcase things so the community could benefit. It actually benefited Capital Games directly because he's the best YouTuber with 150,000 subscribers for a mobile game. He's literally like a top 10 YouTuber in the world for mobile gaming.
The world.
Seriously. We went to YouTube's like premiere thing and we talked to all the mobile YouTubers. And all the mobile YouTubers who were out there all had like 40,000 subs that were like top 10 at the time. And him and I were, at the time, we were both at like 23,000. And we were like, one day we're going to be at 50,000, and now he's at like 150K. And Mobile Gamer was more than they were at the time. And they were like looking at him like, oh, I can't believe it. And he didn't even win an award. I was like, what? This is all rigged. But it's just stupid. But anyway, the reason why we're doing it today was last week, kind of last second, I found out you were busy. He was busy. Everyone was busy.
My schedule screwed up.
Yep. And I was all by myself and I was going to do this video, actually.
He should have done this.
The video that we're going to do now. And I was going to do it all by my lonesome, but, the riots and everything that were happening, it was too raw, too fresh, and I didn't have my thoughts together enough. In fact, I don't think I have my thoughts together enough even now, but I want to talk about it. So I really do. And from a law enforcement perspective, but from and take this with grace, from a Christian perspective, from a law enforcement perspective, from my experience, because every person's experience is valid.
Yeah.
I don't want to discount anyone. And I want everyone to hear me out. I want everyone to, that's why you tune in, right? You tune in because, well, you probably want to laugh, and sadly,
it's not gonna happen.
It may not be as funny today as normally, but hopefully you appreciate my viewpoint. Hopefully there'll be some wisdom in today. There'll be some healing in today. I'm really hoping for that. So
I hope I don't tap.
We'll see.
This microphone.
Yeah. Don't tap the Mikey microphone. The Mickey Mike.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I've been thinking a lot about it for a week, and then I'm going camping. Just a guy dude thing with a friend of mine. His name's Jared. He goes by Dilstradamus in the game, which don't ask me, but we had planned this out because everybody was working. So he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a guy camping?"
I'm not working, for the record.
I know. We planned.
I don't know. My schedule's goofy. I have no idea what's happening I got 5 days off after working on
I know.
like 5 days in a
I
row,
feel a bit rude. I totally didn't invite him in here. I invited him here, but I'm not inviting him to camping. So yeah, it's this awkward.
So don't feel bad when I walk away and sit over on the couch.
Awkwardness. But so today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about kind of this whole thing that is where we're at right now in America with race relations, defunding the police, the protests, the riots. What's going on. I am going to throw some facts out. Facts do not care about people's feelings. I am going to be very, very kind and gentle because I love everyone. I absolutely love everybody in the world, and everybody's valid. Everybody has a valid take. And I feel like the number one problem in America right now is a lack of empathy. That is unequivocally what is going on right now. It's a lack of empathy. Everybody out there looks at each other and they have their set of experiences in life, and somehow their set of experiences in life invalidate other people's. So we see people saying, this is what I have experienced, and it is not what you have experienced, and so you're wrong. And that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. We have people in the entire spectrum. We have people of color who have experienced racism every day of their life. We have people of color who've never experienced it. We have people of color who have experienced it in the outliers on a rare occasion, and they just kind of shirk it off because it's no big deal because they've only experienced it 2 or 3 times in their life, and it was just no big deal because it was just that one weird guy that one time. We have white people who have never, ever seen racism in their life. We have white people who have seen it a couple of times, and it was, again, outliers, no big deal. Like, well, okay, that guy's weird and racist, but, whatever. And we have literal white people who their family members, or they are, straight up like KKK. You know what I mean? So we have the full spectrum.
This is America.
In America, we have the full spectrum, and you are made up of your experiences. Now, they have done surveys both from places where they come from a liberal lean as well as a conservative lean to try to figure out how many people identify with these tendencies. A lot of these are universities, and I'm just not trying to placate. I'm not trying to say, this is bad or good. This just is what it is. Most universities are left-leaning. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it is what it is. So most of these surveys are coming out from a left-leaning perspective, and they're saying that there are some unseen tendencies inside of us that we happen to have, that we could potentially have because of how we're raised, that we happen to have through our experiences in life that we could potentially have.
We're all capable of good and evil.
But all races, all creeds, all whatever. But when they survey individuals and ask them about race and how they perceive individuals of color or individuals of the opposite race, whether it comes from a left-leaning survey or a right-leaning survey, they find that there is less than 14% on average, some are 16, some are 12, that have any kind of negative disparity towards another race. And that is only in thoughts, not in actual action. And that is some very, very liberal thought process in those particular surveys. There are some other surveys that show it's as low as 2 to 5% of the actual population. Now, those could be skewed far in the other direction. If we took a happy medium, because a lot of times we find truth in the middle, we're looking at possibly 8 to 10% that have some form of bias,
bigotry,
or not necessarily bigotry, guys.
No.
Just some sort of kind of preconceived bias or prejudice. And biases and prejudices aren't necessarily things that are
racist.
Are racist. They're just things that they have that are formulating mental pictures or opinions. But it doesn't mean it's anything you're going to act upon or things you could even see yourself necessarily, and other people may not even see them within you for a long time.
Yeah.
And they
Manifest.
are within every race.
Every person.
Black, white, Asian, you know what I mean? Like Hispanic, everything. Like everybody has these. It's not just within one race. This isn't like this isn't because
We are one race.
you're from Europe, you have this. This is actually an American issue right now that I'm talking about. So this is an issue, but it's also an issue that we can agree upon, even in these colleges, if we're honest, that conservatively, over 90% of America can get behind. And if we look at the protests, everybody has to agree with me.
Yeah.
Because there's people at home saying, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's people protesting saying, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, we all agree.
It is ridiculous.
This is ridiculous. Like, outside of the few that are, being rioters and doing terrible things, the majority of the peaceful protesters are saying, racism's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're a part of the 90%. The people that are protesting are part of the 90% that I'm talking about. The people at home that are looking at what they believe are rioters are saying, that are on the other side saying, those people protesting are terrible. Like, well, those people also at home are going, this is ridiculous. Yeah. But guess what? They're actually on the same side.
Yeah.
They're actually the same, of the same mind, because all of those people could get behind it because they all agree the same thing, that it's ridiculous. There's only a small populace. Now, this is the problem. This very small populace of individuals is being pushed into, from the farthest margins of our country, And by the way, our country did, over the last 70 years, a great job of pushing these individuals to the farthest margins of our country and marginalizing those individuals' beliefs. Over the last 8 years, those people have been pushed back to the very center through the media. And I'm not trying to demonize the media, but I am, unfortunately, a little bit, because this is what they're choosing to do. And I'm not saying I'm not saying it's Fox or it's MSM. It's all of them. They're choosing to focus on this solely as a topic, and they're bringing back the marginalized, poorly thought out arguments of these individuals and bringing them back to the center. And they're making those people the center of attention, which makes everybody else think that this is 90% of the people in the world feel this way, which is not the case. This is not the case.
The other way.
It is absolutely not the case. And we can get behind the fact that this is not the case, because when we take a step back, we realize this is wrong. This is not the case. So when we start to take a look at policing in America, we have to take a look in the exact same way as race relations, because it correlates exactly. We look at the departments, and there are good departments. We just talked about this, right? About people. We have departments who have systemic racism within the department. They have people from 60 years ago still running the department.
Right.
And they're hiring, and they're asking them behind closed doors, are they willing to do certain stuff?
Yeah.
We have departments who in public are perfect, but in private doors, they still have that thin blue line. We have departments who, they haven't had racism ever. They have a perfect record. You get police officers, when you start talking to them, who are from one side, and they just get quiet because you're like, oh, he's from one of those departments. Or you get them from someone like my department, the Grand Junction Police Department, and you're like, he's pretty defensive of law enforcement. I wonder why. Well, maybe I should shut up and listen, because there are other departments that aren't like the Grand Junction Police Department. And maybe there's other experiences out there that are different than what I experienced. And maybe I should pay attention, because I need to know the other experiences out there that are different. But I can tell you what my experience is, and maybe you should listen, because throwing the baby out with the bathwater is the wrong direction as well. And we as a society can't heal when we take the marginalized 10% who are wrong and throw the 90% out. And this includes the police department. And so when you take departments, you can't take all police departments and just say, again, there is a percentage. Now, let me just throw some facts. These are facts. You can look them up. Google's your friend. And by the way, the majority of the facts I found were, again, from universities that are literally 97% liberal universities with liberal professors. And I'm not saying that because I'm being derogatory. They're fine. That's fine. That's their political affiliation. That's okay. I'm just saying that to say that these statistics are coming out of a place that isn't from my political affiliation. I'm more of a libertarian. And so it wouldn't align with the libertarian philosophy. So over 250 million adult Americans, over 250 adult Americans in America have the ability to have an interaction with police. Over 50 million, last year it was like 53 million had an interaction with police. That's 1 in 5. 1 in 5 had an interaction with police. 53 million. Let's pause. 53 million. 53 million interactions. Cop, how's it going? What's going on here? What are we doing? Let me see your papers. How's it going? Blah, 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 blah.
I don't know you.
Dude, that is a huge interaction. That is a massive interaction. Okay. 1,000 people in those interactions, 53 million. 53 53 million. 1,000 get shot. That's horrible.
Yeah, 1,000 still.
But 30-ish were unjustified. Now, those are 30 people that should not have died, and I want to get behind every single name. Every single name I want to hear. I want to hear them. I want to get out in those protests, and I want everyone to call those names out. I want people to be in those streets protesting those 30 names. I agree. But over 100 police officers lost their lives as well. And I want you protesters to be out in those streets for those 100 officers that lost their lives unjustly as well. Why not? 53,000 officers were injured last year. 53,000 officers were injured in the line of duty, trying to do what was right. Most of them. You want to know what corrupt versus uncorrupt looks like in law enforcement? 3%. We know this from the same studies that I looked up. These studies believe an estimated average nationwide police population of 3% is corrupt. 3% is corrupt. I would agree with that. That's probably very true. We don't know the heart of man. When we hire an individual, they can lie all they want. They can pass tests. They can go through all of the, I had to go through hell to become a cop. I had to go through polygraphs. I had to go through psychological evaluations. I had to go through physical fitness tests. I had to go through 6 months of a very, very rigorous 6-day-a-week
physical?
No, I'm drawing a total blank.
No.
It's like boot camp for cops, whatever. I'm totally drawing a blank.
Training.
Post-certification. But anyway, I then had to have, 4 months of, doing on-the-job training with them. And then I had to have 2 years of mentorship. I mean, I had to have almost 3 years of like advanced training and mentorship and basically that. So you're talking about significant stuff I had to go through. People can still fake that. They can still get through that. But for me anyway, in my department, it was done what I believe to be correct. There are other departments out there that aren't. Let me tell you something. On the western slope of Colorado, there are police departments that can't hire. They can't. They're trying. They have crime. They need people to become police. They desperately want a police officer. But guess what? All they need is a human being that has a heartbeat and a post-certification. But you know what they have as a budget? They have $14 an hour because that's what their city can afford. $14 an hour. You know, they have private security in that town that pays $16.50 an hour with better benefits. If you're looking for a job, you're not going to become a police officer in that town. So what are they going to get? Well, they're going to get what they're going to get, and they're not going to throw a fit.
Yeah.
There's going to be a problem when they hire an individual who has a less than perfect record, and that person becomes a cop, and then something happens, and then that guy ends up abusing his authority that he's been given because they needed to fill a position. That's not a perfect world. That's terrible. This is horrible. This is the reality, though, unfortunately, that is that. So there is room for improvement. 100%. I can get behind that. In fact, I can get behind and listen to when people say they want to look at changing the department. Now, they're talking about defunding very specifically in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. They were talking about defunding. Now, defunding the police isn't what you think it is. And I put out a Twitter post yesterday, but there's a difference between abolishing the police department, which they're talking about, and defunding the police. And they are, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, very specifically talking about over the next few years, completely abolishing their police department. That is not just defunding the police. What defunding the police means to a lot of people is lowering down the funding that they feel like is being wasted and reallocating those funds to other programs that they feel will be better suited. What this means is if you're spending a lot of money on the back end, it's kind of like, okay, let's look at drugs. If you've got a drug addict and you're paying all the money after he's gotten high, right? You're spending money on him and needing a place to crash after he's gotten high. It's not really an effective method, right? That's the theory. So if you can take the money away from housing him at the end, it doesn't look good, but you take that money away from housing him and you use it for preventative maintenance, trying to keep him off the streets and off of drugs, then he never actually needs the housing at the end. That's the idea of defunding the police. It's actually, in theory, a good idea. The problem is with that idea is that those social programs have been funded for 70 years, and those programs have been in the works for the last 70 years, and none of them have stopped those issues on the back end or on the front end ever. That's why policing has gotten worse and worse and worse, and why funding for police has gone up and up and up. And for anybody who's taken any kind of even modicum of effort to research this has found that that's 100% true. And so the issue is we can try it again, and they can be the guinea pig, and they're going to be. So this will be an interesting watch, but it's the death of that city. I'm going to watch it in anticipation and hopes that they're not going to fail. I really hope they don't fail. I think anyone out there that thinks that or hopes they fail, you're a terrible human being. Nobody wants them to fail. I hope not. That would be terrible. But you take the funding down and you reallocate it to those types of programs. Those programs already have a ton of funding. When people talk about police departments, for example, Ryan says, you're insane. The funding has never been as high as the police force. So Ryan, I appreciate this, and this is glad. I'm glad you're on here and you're talking. He's all a cop defending cops. Shocker. I'm not defending cops at all. I haven't defended cops at all yet. You can try and quote me when I said that. I'm talking specifically about funding law enforcement departments so far. That's where I'm at. I haven't defended the actions of a specific cop yet. In fact, I've already said that what happened with George Floyd is horrific. I would never have done that. I would not have allowed for that to happen. The tactics used, the moment they had him arrested, in fact, the way they arrested him was inappropriate, and video shows that. The moment they had him secured, they could have sat him upright very easily, had their hand on his shoulder very easily. They did not have to, 3 of them, sit on him. I mean, one was on his legs, one was on his back, one was on his head. And by the way, the dude on his back is probably the most responsible, in my opinion, for him having issues with his anxiety and heart attack issues. All 3 of them are equally responsible for pinning him down, but I know that 2 of them are now rookies, and so that's bad because they didn't know what, they were going off of the dude that had his knee on the neck. So that's terrible, but they're all responsible. None of them said, hey, we've got him, let's sit him up. I mean, but the whole thing from start to finish was horrible. I mean, they detained him in an inappropriate fashion. There was no resisting from the beginning, from what the video showcases. That's all horrible. I don't think anyone disagrees. I have not yet found anyone on the left, the right, or libertarian like me who says that what happened was like, hey, okay, that's not the case. Yeah. I haven't found anyone that's like, that's okay. But how many law enforcement officers are in LAPD?
Oh, I don't know.
Guess.
Oh, 1 million.
Oh my God, that's like insane. No, there's not 1 million cops.
You never know. It's a big city. I've never been there.
Yeah, it's a huge city. No, and I actually don't know, but it's probably like 32,000. And I'm probably way off, but it's like a city of police officers, because their goal is to have like 1 law enforcement officer for every 1,000.
Yeah. And they don't have just one job either.
Yeah. It's like 1 for every 1,000 is the goal. You never hit that, but you always try. And when there's 32 million people, you try to hit like 32,000. So that's my guess, around 32,000 people that they have. When you also have those cities that tend to bloat their budgets, Ryan, I'm speaking to you. Don't just look at the police department. Look at every single department in that city. Every one of them is bloated like an elephant that's dead in 150-degree weather. They're all bloated. So you can say, we can steal from the police. Look at that bloated budget. I'm not going to disagree with you that their police budget is potentially bloated. It probably is. But robbing Peter to pay Paul, when Paul is already bloated in and of itself and is still ineffective, is probably not going to actually fix anything, you see, because you've got to still look at Paul, the programs that are on the front end that aren't currently working already. So they have a lot of those programs already in place that they're talking about creating. In fact, they said, we're not even going to create most of these programs. We already have them. They're just underfunded. That's what they've said. I've watched like 6 hours, by the way, of the Minneapolis, Minnesota videos about what they want to do. They have some good ideas, actually. I would be lying if I said I didn't watch them and didn't think that they have some good ideas. The problem is the ideas they have, most of them are already in place. And the biggest thing is what they want to do is expand those programs. Well, most of those programs, if you actually look at their budgets, are already very, very, very large budgets in comparison to what they should have. So we could defund, we could take away, and we could reallocate, and we could raise up. But the question then comes in, have those commissioners, have those mayors, have those governors been utilizing those funds properly to begin with? And if so, how come those programs weren't as effective as they were? Because they have huge budgets right now, regardless of the police force. Because let's take police and how much they're getting out of the equation for a second. Let's just look at those programs and how much money they have and how effective those programs have been. Because if those programs exist, they have decent funding, and they're there now, and they're not working, what's going on?
Yeah.
So
What's the
anyway,
bigger problem
my issue with that is that. So anyway, I'm not saying that that's not going to work. They could take some money away, increase those, and maybe, just maybe, they're gonna spend the money right this time. So maybe that'll happen. But that's not actually what they're talking about doing, because they're actually talking about in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they've been quoted multiple times. I've actually watched the videos. I've heard it come out of their mouth over the next few years, and I have direct quotes in Twitter, abolishing the police department completely. They want to get it gone completely. They want to use interjurisdictional means. That means they're going to help. They're going to have like state cops kind of help take over, which is an absolute jurisdictional nightmare, which also means that some of them might not even want to come in. They're going to try to replace it with a public safety, which is basically like security. I don't know. Listen, with these things saying from these institutions saying 97% of the cops, they believe that 97% of the cops, and these are universities, liberal universities saying 97% of the cops are good in the United States, and they do a good job. Why would we not take the route of reform like Camden? Now, a lot of people use Camden as an example. In fact, on Twitter, if you want to go to Twitter, you can look. A lot of people posted on Twitter Camden as an example. They took Camden and they said, oh, look at these people abolished their police department and then rebuilt it. And Camden is a perfect example. In fact, it's in the news today. Camden, they did what Minnesota wants to do. Camden is not at all what they want to do. Camden is a perfect example of good leadership. That's it. It's a police force with good leadership. They said they basically fired everybody and then rehired everyone. But when they rehired them, they just made them go through a bunch of stuff. And everything they made them go through, I had to go through at my department. I was like, oh, look, they made them go through everything I had to go through. What's the difference? Well, good leadership. That was it. They rehired the majority of the people, but with a precept that they're going to do a good job and they're going to have accountability this time. Well, okay, so that's the same as the department I'm in now. Well, we can't judge every department in the entire United States based off of one bad department. So you have to take it case by case. Now, is there more than one bad department? Sure. I'm sure there is. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't. But we have to remember that every story is valid. Every single story is valid. Every person you talk to, you need to stop and you need to listen. If the individual's talking, you shouldn't be. You should be listening to their story because their story is valid. We have individuals who are going to have come from single-parent homes, two-parent homes, multiracial homes, from the South, from the North, from cities where there were no people of color, from cities where if you're white, you're a minority. I've been there myself personally, twice. It's a hodgepodge. There are places where racism doesn't exist. That's a fact. There are places where racism is literally overt and in your face. And you're like, whoa, I did not even know this thing existed. And now I know what people are talking about. So it's one of those things where I feel like the biggest problem America has today is empathy. Empathy. We don't stop to listen to the other person. We're too busy trying to shove our experiences down the other people's throats. We want everybody to know why we're right because our experience says we're right. Well, your experience does say you're right. You are right. So are they. So are they. So are they. But the only way moving forward that this is going to work is for a couple of things to happen. First, we have to take the outliers, The 3% of cops, we have to focus on them. The departments need to take a hard look at themselves. I can tell you, my department, when I first started, I was still an FTO. FTO is a field training program. It's like when you're a newbie, they're like, we don't trust you, so we're going to keep our eye on you, have a cop right by your side, and we are going to be everywhere you're up. We're going to be up your butt. And that's the way it should be. Pretty much every cop or every law enforcement department has that. I'm not aware of any that don't. And when I was an FTO, our department had a couple of cops who we had. So let me take a step back. Story time. We had in our department, in our Grand Valley where I live, we have 40 organizations that take care of the homeless. 40. And we have a tiny town. 40 organizations that take care of homeless. We take care of homeless so good that other states know about it, that they literally bus homeless to us. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. I have literally, when I was law enforcement, found homeless and they were like, yeah, we just got here. And they handed us bus passes with notes from police departments, from the UPD, Utah Police Department, the Utah State Patrol, that they paid for them to get on the bus and come to Grand Junction, Colorado to get rid of their homeless. That's horrible, by the way. You should never just bus your homeless to another town. That's effed up. Yeah. But anyway, whatever. They literally got rid of their problem by giving them to us because they knew we took care of homeless so well.
Even then.
But I know. But I mean, so we do so well at taking care of homeless that they send their homeless to our town because we do such a good job. And we do. We do a phenomenal job. We have amazing churches that are the hands and feet of Christ. They literally go out and they do what churches say they're supposed to do. They actually take care of the people in the community. We also have 40 organizations that are nonprofits that take care of them. If you're homeless in our town, you are going to be hooked up if you want to be.
You shouldn't be sleeping on the streets.
No, you don't unless you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally, if you're sleeping on the streets, it's a physical by choice thing.
Yeah.
That's it. It's literally by choice.
Working a corner, kind of an occupation these days.
It actually legitimately is. It's not because of choice. So, but when I first got started, the homelessness was so rampant because of people being shipped here that there were a couple of law enforcement officers. They were new. We had hired them. They seemed nice. They seemed good. They were getting fed up with all the calls for the homeless people camping out. And these guys had constantly been going out. And these particular homeless individuals had been choosing to be homeless. They actually were hobos. They wanted to be homeless. They didn't want help. They were living out in tents out in the kind of outskirts by the lake or by the river, and they were just leave me alone, and they wanted to be out there. But they were also getting drunk and causing havoc and throwing rocks and just doing stuff that was getting people to call us on them. And these newer officers decided to go on a call because they were called to go there, and they decided while they were there at the tent city, they went to a call because there was an assault call there, and they went there and the people were gone. And they were ticked that the people were gone. And so these new officers, new officers, were frustrated. This was like the 6th call that week they'd gone on for the same guys, decided to take their little asps, which are like batons, and smack up their tent city, basically, to send them a message like, screw you guys for causing havoc. I mean, the calls for service were expensive. We'd been out there a million times. These guys had, thrown rocks at cars, had started fights. There was a stabbing that had happened. A guy went to the hospital, which cost the city money. I mean, just lots of stuff. Now, I'm not justifying their behavior. In fact, what they did was horrible. They should not have done this. But this was in their mind. They're thinking, this tent camp's got to go. So they pulled their asps out and they smacked the tents around and used their asps to beat up a bunch of the stuff. Well, that was wrong. That was their moment of weakness, where they decided, screw these hobos tents. We're going to jack their tents up and ruin their stuff. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. Moment of stupidity. And maybe they had more moments of stupidity within them. But our department immediately seized on that, suspended them immediately, investigated it properly, and got rid of them. In fact, a civil suit was brought against them, and those homeless people ended up becoming very well off because they were sued. Now, that's what happens in a proper department. People are held accountable. There are departments that doesn't happen. We need to look at those departments as a community together. We need to get behind each other, and that's what we need to do. That's what we need to focus our energy on if we're going to make a difference. We have to, but we have to take it case by case. We can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, you guys. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't know. I don't know, but I can definitely say that every scenario, every circumstance, and everybody's experience in life is valid. And I feel like I said, empathy is the one thing that people are missing. So what I wanted to do is take just a little bit of time. I wanted you individuals who've been listening here to ask questions from a previous law enforcement officer about everything that's going on. This is where I'm going to open forum it. You can ask all the questions you want. I'm not afraid. But you guys need to keep it all appropriate. Mm-hmm. And anything you have question-wise, ask away. And I am going to answer as best I can any question that you guys have for a little bit. And then we're going to do a quick story time at the end. My story time is an interesting one. But it just goes to show stories aren't always what they seem. And yeah.
Don't give it away.
Yep. Don't give it away. Give it away. Give it away now.
Hey, if you have any questions for a small town Illinois man,
you grew up in the inner city in Illinois, dude.
Well, not the inner city, but we got like the trickle down effect from Chicago. So
you weren't in a good neighborhood. Let's just put it that way.
Well, it's just
not inner city. You're right.
No,
because there's like west and
it's only 20,000 people in my small town, but it was one of the bigger small towns in the northern Illinois area. But I could see it from both perspectives because of that experience. It wasn't like an all-white town. There was all-white towns in northern Illinois, but it wasn't. It was a smaller version of Rockford, if you know where Rockford is.
Chip guessed it, Rockford.
I'm not from Rockford, but it's very similar to Rockford. It's just not as big. I'm from Freeport. I don't even know where that's at.
Oh. Propelli says, just talking about Chicago because I live here.
Yeah. So I was reading a lot of Chicago talk, and yeah, Chicago has been messed up for a while. It's a pretty screwed up town. I do enjoy it though, being there to visit. I've been there numerous times to visit the city, inner city, south, north, mostly north because being a Cubs fan, I like to visit Cubs games in the north. It is a little overwhelming, so I don't blame
Are you
me.
a Cubs fan?
Yeah, I am a Cubs fan.
Ha, ha, ha.
They won the World Series when I moved out here, which was pretty lame, but I don't expect much different.
So really, it's an open forum. Anybody can ask any question from prior law enforcement, like what's protocol, what should you or shouldn't you be doing, any questions that you have like that. I do want to go back and say Ryan Fournier, I'm sorry, I'm butchering your last name. I apologize, Ryan. I agree with you, and I'm glad you're passionate. I can hear your passion in your texting. I mean, I can hear your passion, and I love that you're here. I love that you're dissenting, and I love that. And I want to get behind you, brother. And I agree with you. I agree. They may not be doing it exactly right, but they're trying, right? And that's good. They're trying something. I just hope what they try works, because to expect failure and to hope for failure is the wrong way. The other thing is you're right. There are a lot of departments. In actuality, the bigger the department, the worse it gets. And this is why anytime you bloat anything up, the worse it gets. Look at our federal government. Like anytime you take something and grow it, the bigger propensity it has for fat. And the more fat it gets, and then the worse it gets. And so the harder it is to trim that fat down, it's really, really difficult. And it's easier for things to hide and not be seen and found. And so it's really, really difficult for sure. Let's see. So Jacob says, why do you speak about racism like it's whites hating blacks only? I don't, absolutely don't. Earlier on, I talked about it. Everything is about your experience. And boy, Jacob, you're ruining my story time. But we'll get to that. But we discussed this earlier. Racism comes in every form. Racism is simply when you hate somebody from another skin color for whatever reason. It doesn't matter what color you are and what color they are. It's when you dislike them for their skin color for whatever reason it is that you dislike them. And I have experienced racism myself personally because I was white. People did not like me. In fact, the irony, when I was in the Navy, that was a time when I experienced racism, and I was kind of.
Do people hate you for being in the Navy though? Like from other stems?
Yeah, but that's just prejudice. That's like the Marines hating me.
But there's prejudice.
Yeah, they're prejudiced, but that's good prejudice because, I have prejudice against the Marines. I
don't like Packers fans.
We just take the Marines where they need to go because, they just hop on our ships and we just take them there. And the Army, we have prejudice against the Army, and the Army has prejudice against the Navy.
But you work together.
But that's actually not real prejudice. That's just, us giving each other a hard time,
It's like sports.
Military does that to each other. But no, I mean like real, like.
Maybe politicians do that too.
Weirdly enough, in the military, it was really weird. There was some I had never in my life seen overt racism. For the most part, I grew up pretty isolated from that, other than my story time. I grew up pretty isolated from that. And then in the Navy, it was like, boom. And it was really heavily, very thickly on me. And I was just like, wow, man, why are you guys hating on me?
Well,
and they were just,
pretty
and they were very forward. They're because of who you are.
Well, Ray Rock's been to Freeport a few times.
I was like, wow, okay.
Was it a glorified toilet, like people like to call it? I'm born and raised there, so I know it from a, really intimate perspective.
But that's the thing. Everyone's experience is valid. Every human being out there has a story where they say, oh man, I grew up and all these whites I knew, they were racist. So that's my experience and whites are racist. Or they say, oh, I grew up in a neighborhood where it was predominantly people of color and the Hispanics or the blacks I knew, they were super racist. And that's their experience. And they're like, man, that's just my experience. Or they grew up and they were like, I was around people of color or they're a person of color and they were around whites. And they're like, I never experienced racism. I have people from every socioeconomic, political class and race diversity that have had every experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've been accused of racism and I've been, kind of prejudiced against in that sense. I'm not going to call it racism because I just have a hard time with that. It was, black kids throwing rocks at me for no other reason that I could come up with in my head, other than the fact that I was a white kid alone walking. Like, why would you throw rocks at me? Was there any reason for it? I wasn't giving the finger.
Well, sometimes there's just hatred.
Yeah.
And it's just
But I'm not going to sit there and say those guys are racist because I didn't have a conversation.
Well, some
with
people
them
are
about
opportunists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then other times they throw it and they're like, stupid white boy.
Yeah.
They
weren't even supposed to be off.
I had a group, Marco and his little gang in 5th grade, they used to throw bricks at me on my way home. And, they would,
dodging bricks. It's
they would say that to me. So it's like, okay, well, you're racist, but
anyway, it is, man.
Okay, here's some questions. So
got a lot of questions.
Darth Skywalker says, do you think paying cops more would bring in better candidates? And so the question you got to ask yourself, the question you got to ask yourself on that is, how much is enough and how much is too much? And so I'm going to talk about that just really quick. In where I live, there are departments that pay $14 an hour and they're never going to get a candidate that's worthy. And that's a shame. And they're not going to ever get anybody quality. In fact, what they're going to get is a lawsuit. This is super sad. And those towns will go bankrupt because who they hire is going to be someone with a record probably. Cause literally, or they're going to get a brand new newbie or like some super old retiree. Either way, it's like a tragedy waiting to happen. Yeah. That's terrible. They're not paying enough. So they have to, they're just going to have to find it in the budget to pay more because you've got to bring in a better candidate, somebody who's got like, 8 years in, a veteran, maybe someone who was a sergeant in leadership, came from a really well reputable department, but maybe just wants a smaller town, wants to kind of get away from the craziness that is that, and bring them in.
Hey, my small town has some craziness in it.
Yeah, recruit them.
It's magnified because it's so small.
And this is also the thing. It's relative, right? Because in where I live, houses cost $300,000 to $500,000. Yeah, in some places, houses are $100,000. In some places, houses are $1 million. Like that's all you can only get a house for $1 million. You know what I mean? In some places, a house is 400,000 like here. And other places, a house is like $100,000 and you can get like a mansion for $100,000. So it depends on where you live. Where we live, to buy just an average house, it's $400,000. We're in Colorado. $14 an hour ain't going to cut it. So you've got to pay them something that they can actually live where you're, living. So you've got to do that. But with the department I worked at, we were the highest paid department in the state of Colorado. I got started. This was back, 13 years ago, I was getting paid like $33 an hour. That I was super happy about, but that was an overinflated, in my opinion, budget at the time for where I lived. I mean, I got paid great money. I was making $85,000 a year, which is, you're a law enforcement officer defending your town in your mind. And so, it was good money, $85,000 a year. It was something I could live on for sure. I was able to live well and take care of my family and all of that. But there were other departments that could not even compete with that. And so we had the best of the best candidates. So yeah, if you pay more, you get better. But at some point, there's a cap where all of a sudden you're just bloating the budget. A good example of a bloated budget, and this has nothing to do with the department. This has to do with government. Okay. I'm going to open eyes. I really hope I open eyes. This should change you guys into libertarians like that. Screw the Democrats, screw the Republicans. This is a libertarian mindset right here, guys. Listen, my department, we did not need a police car at all. We had like all new cop cars. And we had a budget every year, for new cop cars because, cop cars time out, they get so many miles on them, like 80,000 miles. And, they've been used and abused driving and, going code 3 to, lights and sirens to things. And you accidentally, hitting bumps when you're going to a thing or you're, going here, there, whatever. The cars are abused. And you're like 80,000 miles for a cop car is like, that's used and abused. You time it out and you sell it. You got to decide what's reasonable, right? Is 120,000 on a cop car reasonable? Is 80,000, 20,000? Like what's the mileage? Well, 20,000 stupid. That's stupid. You barely even broke the car in, right? There are some departments that do that. You got to look at that. Like that is pork, brother. That is pork. You got to dig into those budgets. Our department had a budget for cars. We didn't need a car. It was December. We had that money in the bank for the cars. And if we didn't use it the next year, the city was going to say, well, if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Nice.
Because that's just the way the government works.
So take that away
because
from you.
Our government was fiscally conservative, which was good in that sense because our budgets shrank every year trying to save money. So you could say conservatism, hey, that's Republicans, that's great. But it was government mentality. It wasn't a case-by-case basis mentality or a let's be logical about mentality. It also wasn't a, hey, let's bloat it. Let's just throw more money at it either, like the other side. So what did they do? They spent it. They didn't need to. They did. Why? Because they didn't want to lose the money. You know why? Because next year they had like 4 cars that were gonna term out, and they knew it. They knew they were gonna have 4 cars term out, and they were afraid of that. And they didn't want to lose their budget for cars. So what did they do? They spent the money. So what did they do? They just found the oldest cars, the oldest 2 cars, and they bought the cars to replace the oldest 2 cars. Wastefully spent $100,000 on 2 cop cars that they didn't need to do, just to spend money so they could keep it in their budget. Now, guess what? My department's not alone. Basically, every department in the United States does this. So does the federal government. So does the state governments. So does every government. That's just what government does. It's just what government does. They're inefficient with money. They're inefficient. All of them. They're inefficient. They're inefficient. We have a bigger picture here, you guys. It's not about the police department sometimes. There are some things that are bigger than that when it comes to budgets and money and expenditures. You've got to look at how money is spent, how money is allocated. Why does a budget have to shrink? Why can't a budget be, variable? Why can't we look at things like that? I mean, there's got to be more creativity on that end. There should be more public accountability with that kind of stuff. There should be more involvement in that kind of stuff. Budgets should be submitted for review to the community in which they serve.
Mm-hmm. Like what you spend your money on, huh?
Departed 402 says the information he read that one of the officers was concerned about excited delirium on him. That's kind of a moot point at this point, because even if he was concerned about that, there was no physical or visual proof that he was of an issue physically, and could have been sat up even in an excited delirium state, and should have had an ambulance rolled to him 9 minutes prior if that was the case. So anyway.
Negligence does happen. They are humans and they make errors quite often.
Yeah. Exo says that these other places get leftover cops. Yeah. $14 an hour. That's what you get.
Do people want RoboCops, do you think?
Let's see. What are your thoughts on crowd control measures used for the photo op last Monday? Yeah, that's a rough question, brother. So from what I understand, AG Barr had asked before that ever happened for an expansion of a whole block. And then it had been announced 3 separate times to everybody in the area that the perimeter was going to be expanded by over a block, because the day prior, the church burned. And so AG Barr announced that we're going to expand the perimeter to include the church and other places of concern. And so he put that announcement out, and they were going to expand it. After that announcement, hours and hours after that announcement, Trump decided, I'm going to go ahead and go, since they're expanding it, I'm going to go take a photo op. And then he decided to do that. Individuals that I believe probably were, I'm guessing, were peaceful, had refused to leave the expanded perimeter location. I got to say, guys, I'm empathetic totally to peaceful protesters, because I've done it before. I've been a peaceful protester many a time. I've been downtown where I live and also in other places and protested. I think it's a very, very healthy part of our Constitution, and it needs to maintain. I mean, First Amendment is there for a reason. But when property and destruction and riots occur and the government creates expansive perimeters for safety and especially when it's around the White House, and they tell you to leave and disband, and they give you a lawful order like that because they're expanding something, you have to follow that. Like, okay, you got to move now. You can peacefully protest, but now you got to do it a block away. You have to. It's a lawful order at that point. Move. You don't have to like it, but you can do it. You just have to do it a block that way. When you refuse to do it, they're going to, after 3 attempts at telling you this, and you refusing 3 times, they are going to use less lethal methods such as the gas or whatever it was that they distributed. I have no idea what they shot and what they put out there, but they did. Did he just go out there and spray people and do that just for a photo op? I don't believe so. I believe the perimeter was expanded specifically for other purposes, and he also went to do that. But that's my opinion. I don't know. I'm not trying to defend the man, but I don't think he just went out there and went, hey, hurt those peaceful people, let me take a photo op. Ha, 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 ha. I don't think that was the case. I mean, that was gonna backfire on him,
regardless to what he does.
Regardless, that was gonna be a horrible situation. I think he figured by the time he went out there, people were gonna be cleared out, because it was announced literally like 14 hours prior, and they had given 3 separate announcements. And I think he thought by that time, these peaceful protesters were going to be gone by then. And they just weren't. So, but the whole thing was just terrible. I mean, if it was me, and it's not me, I'm not Trump, thank God I'm not Trump, but if it was me, I would have just called the photo op off. I would have just called it off. I'd have been like, listen, until you get them gone, just let me know, we'll do it tomorrow, whatever. Like, I am not an antagonist. Some people are, and I'm just not. I would have just been like, this, whatever. It is what it is. So
peacemaker. That's what you should be. We should all be peacemakers.
So Matt has spent the last 5 years in China, and he said he's seen very overt racism, Asian versus everybody, basically, especially Asian versus African because of skin color. That is true. And in fact, I've been all over the world as well and traveled, and I've seen racism in every country I've been in as well. It is not just an American thing. It is everywhere. Yeah, that is true. Let's see, Tommy. The droid attack on the Wookiees.
I know there's been a few interesting questions.
Yeah.
Like, where's the favorite place to get steak in Grand Junction? I like that question. I don't even know.
Exo says, what are your thoughts on crowds not following the orders to disperse, then playing soccer with the smoke bombs and complaining when the gas comes out? I didn't see them do that, but that's exactly what I just said, was they did not follow orders to disperse. That was the issue that people don't talk about for sure on that. It's ironic. Let's see. Phil McCracken. I've heard these stories everywhere. It's the same, I assume. Departed 402 says salary is highly dependent upon location. That is absolutely true. Also, when you get older, admin are tired of working the road. They'll adjust their budget from training, cover the road when they sit back. Yeah, for sure. They'll definitely take a lower paid, like a training position so they can get off the road for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also the military, spend it or lose it. That military does that. And that's horrible. Like, Tommy, you're right. And that's, like I said, this is a government issue, a bloated government issue, not like just police law enforcement. Like I told you, I'm not defending the police department's budget issue. I'm telling you guys, you need to look broader and look at all the budgets, because there are the idea that there are other programs that can help on the back end or on the front end before people get in trouble. Those programs exist in every city already. Some of them have much smaller budgets. When you look at the budgets, I agree. But a lot of those budgets are still in the multi-million dollars, and some of them are funded by the federal government by the billions
and billions.
Yeah, and like they're like, well, if we just had more access to education and housing, and our city only gives, they say like our city only gives, we only have $40,000 for charitable whatever. And it's like, yeah, but the federal government steps in and gives $2 billion. Like, you're not even taking into account that. So it's apples and oranges. You got to be careful. You want to take a step back and look at how much money is already going into that, because just throwing more money at stuff isn't always the case. But we do have to take a look at it. We definitely have to take a look at it. Darth Skywalker asks, do I believe George Floyd's death was racist? I personally don't believe the dude thought it was racist. I think he was just a bad cop with bad policing. I think he thought, because he was being recorded and knew it, and he was looking at the camera like, I think he was arrogantly in his mind thinking, this ain't going to kill him.
Probably.
This ain't going to kill him. The guy's on drugs. Screw it. Record me if you want to record me. I don't care. I don't think for 1 minute he was thinking, I'm white, this guy's black, he's going to die, record me, and I'm going to hell. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that
wasn't his motivation.
I don't think it even crossed his mind. I don't. And I just think that, yeah, but it started something that I don't think he ever could have imagined. Yep. So, yep. Just crazy. 150, Mark Garnett said 150 DC police officers have been injured. In New York alone, right now, in the hospitals, there are over 300 police officers in the hospital. Now, to be hospitalized, guys, they're wearing riot gear.
Yeah. It's gonna be
shin guards, chest plates.
Not just masks that don't protect you from anything.
Helmets. Shields. I mean, these guys are basically military. They're wearing basically military gear, and they got injured enough. Now, we're not talking about like they're bleeding. Oh, put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
Hospitalized.
It's got to be pretty serious.
Hospitalized. I mean, you're in the hospital. They're putting you in. They're keeping you. They're observing you. Over 300 hospitalized in New York. Over 300. Over 300. Hospitalized.
You ever watch The Purge?
I'm not I'm not, again, taking sides. I'm just pointing out a stat or a fact and having you guys ponder that.
Yeah.
Ponder that. That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think I could hurt a cop.
There's another 300 New York officers who are retiring in addition to those who got injured because they just like, I'm not going out there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't do this.
I don't blame
like,
them.
I'm put on the badge every day. I try to do my best.
Yeah.
I'm part of the 97% of good cops. Like, I'm part of the people who try to do really, really good. These are Puerto Ricans. These are blacks. These are whites. These are Asians. These are people who were born and raised in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. These are people who, this is their brethren out there. Yeah. And they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I try.
It's got to take a lot for them to quit.
To be a good cop. They're 97%. 3%'s bad. And we should go after every single one of those 3%. But hanging up the other 97% to dry isn't right either. Mm-mm. And I feel horrible for the individuals who are quitting because they feel like they have no other choice. I left in 2012 and thought it was bad back then. And I made that choice consciously to leave because of things like this. And I thought it was bad then. I can't even believe how bad it is now. So what about covering the badge and not being identifiable? These are good, tough questions, and I'm glad you guys are asking them. So covering the badge and not being identifiable, and a helicopter hovering feels very Banana Republic-y and somewhat fascist to me. So a helicopter hovering, I would have to know the very specifics. Why were they doing it? Are they spotlighting? Are they trying to use it as a tactic to do crowd control? So for example, if you're in a place you're not supposed to be and you've been told to disperse and you're not, and they use the helicopter wind to actually try to push you away, that's actually a tactic. May sound fascist to you, but it's actually a pretty successful tactic to use wind, just like they use fire hoses to push people back who refuse to leave. Again, it's pretty fascist for people to refuse to leave in places and be violent when they're told not to be violent and not to leave, or to leave places they refuse to leave when they're throwing Molotov cocktails. So I mean, there's two sides to that coin, but if the helicopter's just out of nowhere coming over peaceful protesters and coming down and being a douchebag, excuse my language, to peaceful protesters, that ain't right either. So we got to talk about the helicopter. I don't know the scenario. Now, covering badges and not being identifiable. There's two reasons for this. There's one reason is if the department says that it's authorized, it's because they fear for public safety for the officer. Now, let me tell you, I'm just going to tell you one story. In Atlanta, there is an actual group of, and you can look it up, of Antifa who were following officers home and firebombing their cars. And all they were doing was looking at their badge, getting who they were, finding out who they were, then following home and firebombing their cars, firebombing their house. And so there are some departments that are authorizing these departments or these individuals to actually cover badge, name, that kind of stuff for anonymity. That is a response to violence that's happening off of duty. So you have to understand, some of these people are literally having people shoot them at their house. An officer was shot in the back of the head as he got off duty. Another officer was beaten up and dragged. 72 officers were injured around the United States in the last week, and a handful of them were done near or at their house, within a block of their house. So there are some departments that are authorizing this because it's a response to what is going on. So, I don't know if, I normally, under normal pretenses, normal circumstances, would say that's just wrong. Don't cover your badge. Everyone should know who you are. I never covered my badge. I always had it openly and available. If people asked, I give them a freaking business card, here's who I am or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I've also had an individual know exactly who I am, know where I live, and tell me when he gets out, he's going to murder me too. And he really meant it. And so I do know that there's a potential when he gets out in a couple of years that he could show up at my front door and put a bullet in my brain, all because I arrested him because he tried to kill his wife twice. And she jumped out of a window naked 2 stories to try to save her own life. And I had to drag her out of a bush and carry her naked, a couple of blocks to try to save her life. And he hates me because I saved her life. He was trying to take it. He has a few years left, and I've got to deal with that. He knows my name, my first, my middle, my last name, my last 4, my social, where I live, everything about me. That's real. So, I can see why departments would want to create anonymity for their officers in these extreme situations. But I can also see why this would be wrong in normalized situations. But in riot situations or in situations that are really tense, where there's the presence of Antifa or other organizations that might hurt you, I could see that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I can empathize with the officers who are doing it. I don't know. That's a tough question for sure. I can see why they would do that because of what's going on. How do you feel about Cal asks, how do you feel about the rookie cops being charged? You know what? Ignorance is not bliss. If I was a rookie cop and my sergeant was doing something that I felt was wrong, I would have said, dude, I just don't feel this is right. I'm sorry, man. And like conviction time, I would have been like, dude, we got to sit him up. I would have been like, I'm sorry. And I just stood up and walked away and like said, we got to get an ambulance or something. We got to do something. And I would have at least gone and got another officer who was of equal, I would have gone above his head, basically. I would have said, I'm sorry if you're gonna have to write me up or whatever.
But you're a very self-driven person.
I am a very self-driven person, but that's no excuse for someone who's not self-driven. You have to have courage. You have to have courage to be a law enforcement officer. That is one of the tenets of being a police officer, and that's
super passive.
Courage is found in FTO, in your training. It's found, and this was his test, and he failed.
You shouldn't be timid as a cop, but you shouldn't be
aggressive.
So
unfortunately, that officer should be charged, although his charges should be significantly less because, there is a lot of that. He's a rookie. He doesn't know. He was following directions. He was ignorant. He wasn't even aware that the guy could have died. There's a lot of ignorance involved in this officer. I have no idea what's going on. Okay, I'm doing what I'm being told. What's going on? I get some of that.
Turns into manslaughter.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, he died. What? No freaking way. What happened here? It all happened so fast. And, I get that. But he was complicit.
Yeah.
He was complicit.
I'm sure the videos weren't released yet because they're probably going to use them towards the trials.
Yeah, the media, Mark says the media divides people. That's right. They take the 3% and they put it, the outlying 3%, and they bring it into the middle and they focus only on the 3% because they want everyone to believe the 3% is the 90%.
Magnify.
Yep. My cousin used to be a police chief and told me about newer officers following the old dogs. Said, while there's new programs coming out for training, old dogs have their way of doing things. That's true, and that's not really necessarily the right way. I definitely wouldn't do that. The call was for a fake 20. You don't think that was excessive and probably racist? I don't think it was racist. I do think the video shows excessiveness in everything they did. They walk him out. He wasn't resisting, and everything they did was excessive. I don't think, Ryan, that it was racist. I honestly don't. There was a Hispanic, an Asian, a black, and a white cop, and all 4 of them complicitly grabbed the guy, aggressively pulled him down to the ground and hold him down for 9 minutes. And they all do it together. And I don't believe any of them thought, I'm going to do this because he's a black guy. I think they did it because they were, especially the white guy, he was like, I'm going to show these guys how to do proper policing in Minneapolis. This is how we do it, And in his mind, he was like, I'm going to show you how to be a real cop. It was bad policing. It was just really bad policing. It was arrogance. I don't think, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong. This dude could be a total racist, but he was married to an Asian. So, but he could be racist to a black. I have no idea what was in his mind. So you're guessing, I'm guessing. The only person that knows is him. But from what I see, I see just arrogance in law enforcement. I don't see anything factual presented that says he's a racist. There were no racial epithets. There's no history of racism. There's no anything that says he's a racist. There's just really terrible policing and police modeling to these other cops, and these other cops just follow suit. All of it was just really, really bad. So yeah. Let's see. The video is edited to show him not resisting. I have no idea about that. Ray Rock says, I experienced the same thing when I used to work at Caterpillar. I was recommending changes for work, and some of the older guys feel their way of working is best. That's true. Medical helicopter could have been. I have no idea if the helicopter was medical or not. Let's see. Question. Who do we need more right now? Cup or mob enforcer? Good question. Cup. No, I'm just kidding. That's actually a really funny question because mob enforcer, enforce the mob, or Cup, Coruscant Underworld Police. I think Coruscant Underworld Police would know better. Plus, all he has is a taser. So there's no one. I mean,
it's like all you have is a taser.
Yeah, he's just gonna be like,
That was wrong.
Yeah, we need the Empire. Dun 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 dun. dun
I'm Empire,
dun.
but that doesn't make me,
Yeah. All right.
I
Question.
just like Darth Vader.
What,
James Earl Jones.
What group or groups do you think are promoting these riots and looting behind peaceful protesters, as well as leaving pallets of bricks on the streets?
Oh, I know where you're getting.
Oh, no. So there is actually a multitude of different groups that are doing this. It's not one group, you guys. Everyone seems to want to blame it on the other.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't realize that there's bad actors in every political spectrum, and every political spectrum is trying to use this. I know. Every political group is trying to use this for their gain. I know.
Honest politics. What is that?
Yeah, honest politics.
Is that a thing?
So I don't know who dropped the bricks off, but that's a thing that really happens. In every 78 cities, there were like protests, and in at least 5 major cities, there were massive amounts of pallets of bricks just dumped off downtown. Like,
I'm sure they're working on something.
No, they just magically showed up. In fact, there's police departments that said, hey, if you guys see these magical bricks showing up, please let us know so we can come pick them up. Because that's terrible.
They showed up in my town. I'm like,
yeah,
what the heck are they
bricks
doing
are
in
being,
Illinois?
the bricks are being thrown at people or at the businesses.
My lack of a downtown is boarded up.
But let me just say, if you think that it's Democrats, if you think that it's Republicans,
Antifa.
if you think that it's Antifa, if you think that it's
Communists.
George Soros, if you think that it's white extremists, you're right.
We're communists.
Every single organization has bad actors, and every bad actor and every single organization is the bad actors are very specifically trying to utilize this for their gain, because the damage that was done was actually done to different there were just people that were out there trying to gain for themselves. They were just stealing to steal for themselves. There were people targeting very specific locations. There were people specifically trying to get leftists to do damage. There were people on the left doing damage to the right. There were people that were anarchists of sort, just trying to do damage to federal buildings. I mean, it was like there are cases of every type of organization out there doing damage for their cause. There are case examples for every single. I mean, you could make a solid argument for every single one of those things I just said, and you could have case studies from every single one, and you could defend that and probably be right. I believe that every single organization had a bad actor that said, "This is my opportunity. This is my opportunity. I got to use it," and they went out and they used this opportunity to try to advance their agenda. And they tried to blend in and advance their agenda. And in the chaos, they were able to, some of them, advance what they believed their agenda to be and victimize whoever they wanted to victimize in that scenario. What we see after like 11 going on 12 days now is a lot of that is starting to die down, and it becoming more about peaceful protests and about just a common theme of, coming together in peaceful, protests and things like that. But it's literally like, there's examples for every single aspect. So when people are like, oh, it's Antifa. Well, yes, there are bad actors for Antifa that are literally out there, but there are also people from other organizations. This isn't just Antifa. This is not just Antifa. Trust me. There are news articles that are saying, oh, it's white extremists. Yes, there are some white extremists out there utilizing this absolutely as an opportunity to destroy some black, neighborhoods and stuff like that. You 100% right. There are people, bad actors from every aspect of this, utilizing this chaos for their own opportunity. Ryan Fournier says, I still want to know what this 3% is. Is that the officer is caught and charged? If that's the case, the number is highly inaccurate. The 3%, no. These are all of the cases where the officers have the interaction where every interaction is judged, literally civilly, and not criminally, but civilly. Now, do you guys understand the difference between criminal and civil? Okay, criminal is beyond a reasonable doubt. 90%. Beyond a reasonable doubt means that there's no real evidence to suggest otherwise. 90% you did it. Like, you have to convince 12 people or 6 people, depending on the crime, that you did it. A jury of your peers. And more than likely, your peers probably empathize for you. And we have to prove, we as the state or the county or the city, whoever's prosecuting, have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, 90%, that you did it. And we got to convince people that probably empathize with you that you did it. So the burden is exceptionally high that you did it. And so to convict, it's exceptionally difficult. And if we do convict, that means that you probably did do what you're convicted of doing. With civil's totally different. Civil is preponderance of the evidence. 51%, more likely than not. Meh. Almost no evidence. You basically have to say, did this occur? Maybe, maybe not. Basically barely over, maybe he did. That's what cops have to face when it's a civil suit. Cops get sued civilly for every criminal charge. So if a cop shoots somebody, they're civilly sued. A lot of people, you don't even know that. Civil suits happen all the time. I was civilly sued. I won my civil suit because a homeless person was peeing in public. I wrote him a peeing in public ticket because he was literally peeing on a private institution. The private institution called me and said, he's peeing on my building. And so I showed up and I wrote him a ticket for peeing on the building. And then he said I violated his civil rights because he didn't have a bathroom to pee. And he said that because he didn't have a bathroom to pee.
No pot to piss in.
He had no pot to piss in. So I violated his rights because I didn't.
At least he didn't pee on you.
The irony is there was literally a public bathroom across the street at a park. So like whatever. So I won that. I won that, but it cost me a lot of money and a lot of time, and my name got dragged through the mud for a long period of time. And like, why do you want to be a cop? I have no idea. That's one of the many reasons why I decided after 7 years, like, I'm going to get out of here. But preponderance of the evidence, civil suits, more likely than not, 51%. Do you know how low that standard is? And it's people who empathize with the victim. So they're like, yeah, the cop didn't let me use the restroom. And these people are like, oh, poor homeless person. And all they got to do is more likely than not that happened, just 51%. So it's almost guaranteed you're going to win a civil suit. It's literally easy, 51%. It's not 90% like a criminal case. So cops face that. And that's where, when you talk about a 3% bad actors, these cops, if they were really wrong, would easily be civilly sued and lose. So when you're talking about these studies finding 30% wrongfully accused or wrongfully shot, these are 30 people that were wrongfully shot out of 1,000 that got civilly sued and won. Yeah. The rest didn't win. That means there wasn't even enough evidence to win a preponderance of the evidence. That is such a low standard. I mean, anyone can sue a cop and win pretty much. I mean, it's so low of a standard that all you got to do is basically not have camera footage and have like one witness and whoop, I sued a cop and won. I mean, it is so stupidly low. And that's why there's the immunity where the cops can be defended by the department and the department will pay for the lawyer up to a certain amount, because these lawsuits are so frivolous and cops would go bankrupt because of the amount of lawsuits. But now they're talking about removing that immunity. You guys look at it in the news. It's in there, and they're doing it. In fact, they're trying to do it right now in Congress. Their Congress is pushing for removing that immunity. And you guys will think it's a good thing. But there is not a cop in America that will work once that's removed. They're all going to frickin' disappear because they'll all get sued 2 times next year. They'll lose their house. They'll lose their cars, all because of bull crap, because of fake lawsuits, because everyone gets sued when your car gets hit. Oh, you get hit and they sue your insurance company. Well, when you have no insurance company because you can't have an insurance company, and all of a sudden the person hits your car, but they have a lawyer and you don't, and all of a sudden they sue you for $100,000 and you're like, well, you're going to stop driving a car. You're going to say, F this, I'm not driving a car anymore. So you'll start walking. That is what it is. It's saying to cops, you don't get insurance policy anymore. You can't have an insurance policy. Well, they're not going to drive anymore. That's what that is. You guys don't understand. You don't understand. I guarantee you don't understand if you support it. So anyway, my agency is composed of mostly younger guys. We realize when the middle-aged guys or the 90s cops on resisting a person never see anything excessive, just harsh. Departed 402, you're right. I had a guy that was 46 years in, and when he retired a couple of years ago, like the department rejoiced because he was a desk guy, so we knew. But anytime he showed up on a call, anyway, I kept a list of things that he would say because he was funny. He saw a 6-pack of Coronas in the back seat on a DUI I was on, and he was like, "Hey, did you notice that 6-pack of Corollas?"
Corollas? What is this guy's name? Farva?
I know. I was like, what are you talking about, Corollas? You mean the Coronas? And he's like, yeah. I'm like,
6-pack of cars over there.
Don't do me a favor. Do not write a supplemental report, brother. Get out of here. You're going to screw this DUI up, man. Oh, idiot. Do you play another mobile game, a new one? Jacob asks. Thank you for the donation, brother. I appreciate that, Jacob. Yes, I actually started playing a disc golf. It's called Disc Golf Rival, and I freaking love it. I'm actually thinking about making videos for it. Starting to figure out how to come up with the games for that. Propelli says activists are known for planning and leaving things like bricks and stuff in the wrong streets. They do it because the crowd gets going. It only takes a match to get the powder keg going. Yep. Sure. Can we do questions about Star Wars Galaxy Heroes? You just want to forget about it? I'm honestly just so far behind on Star Wars. I can't answer questions anymore, pretty much. I mean, I stopped doing
That's talking about like
Jedi Academy. I mean, I show up on Jedi Academy like once a month now because honestly, I hear the questions and they're like, what composition should I do for, this and this? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's almost as bad as me now.
I know. I know.
I'll answer questions about the movies, maybe the TV shows.
And then Dark Guyver 666 says, I'm wrong about the court system. And I would challenge you about this. I'm wrong and you're wrong. I'm right and you're right. And this is why, again, I said this earlier. We're all made up of our experiences, and there's a full spectrum, brother.
It's a huge country.
It's a huge country. There are court systems where they're fair and just, my friend, and I've been there. In fact, the court systems in Grand Junction are amazing. Your court system's probably corrupt, from what you're telling me. I have no idea. But don't judge the court systems in every city, state, and county based on yours.
Yeah.
That's just wrong. Yours are wrong, potentially, according to you, based on your experience. And your experience is not invalid. It's valid, brother. Whatever's going on in your system needs looked at. It sounds like you have a genuine grievance. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because your court system already has your fate already made before you enter the courtroom. Don't throw out every court just because of that.
Yeah.
I've been to court many a time on both sides. My brother, I love him to death, but growing up, we didn't, we didn't have the best growing up, and my brother was in court a lot. And the court system was very just to him. He was given many opportunities to make right, and that was very fair here. But we also had friends of color that were given the same equal opportunities over and over and over and over. In fact, one of our friends was on the same case and was actually given a deferment where my brother wasn't and sent to jail, and he had more involvement. but my brother had a prior and he didn't, so it was fair. Where they could have been like, oh, you get it too because you're a person of color because we're racist, and they weren't. So it was fair. So our judicial system, from my perspective, has been exceptionally fair. But I also know there are judicial systems where the judge is like, probably got a swastika in his closet. I don't know. So
could be very possible.
So
or wear a white hood somewhere.
So Dark Guyver 666. Your experiences are valid, brother. They're valid. But just know that you can't invalidate other people's experiences through your valid experience. Empathy is what we're lacking, my friend. Empathy is what we're lacking. Cutting Timber says, I live in a small mountain town in Colorado. Yes, which one?
Yeah, right.
And it seems we lose most of our good police officers to the next county over where the wage is significantly higher. Totally. Yeah. That's for real. L-Dub says, what's up, Warrior? What's up, my friend? It says, well, I believe you probably get out because you're a good dude. I appreciate that, my friend. And I can see all the corrupted nonsense going on, and you just want out of that. Yeah. But I didn't want out of a corrupted system. My law enforcement department was not corrupted. I didn't want out of a corrupted system. It wasn't corrupted. The Mark says the ironic thing about defunding or abolishing a police would create a police state. Possibly, but not really. So you got to remember, by doing what they want, it's not truly abolishing police. So like in Minneapolis, they want to actually abolish the police and replace it with like a security detail and like tons of extra funding to a bunch of other programs. But outside of that, defunding police really means just taking a lot of bloated resources away from cops, lowering that department down to a kind of a more skeleton department, and reallocating funds to other things. It would actually not create a police state in that sense. But what it would do is actually create worse, because it's not going to make it more efficient. If you've ever been in a police department and you take away funding, things just get worse. Things just fall apart, especially in government, because government is already inefficient. If you took a department, a government department, doesn't matter if it's police or not. If you take away a government department and take away funding, the government department just falls apart. It doesn't matter what it is. So it just gets worse. So if you take any department and you take away money, it just gets worse. So that's the end result. And so I don't know. I think what will happen is they'll have to adjust pay and things like that, and have to, adjust their budget accordingly. They'll have crappier cars. They'll have not as much training. They'll hire people at a lower rate. They won't have they won't have the immunity. People won't be able to sue them, which will be a good thing, because they'll be like, oh, what are the coffers? So there's no coffers. Oh, damn it. I can't sue them for anything now. Because that's the thing. People do know that. Lawyers know, oh, that department's worth a lot of money. Mm-hmm. That department's not worth a lot of money. I can't sue them, so whatever. Yeah. Well, that department, it's worth a lot.
Well, people know that too about other people.
Yeah. People actually know that, though. It's really sad. The lawyers do know that. Yeah. They know which, like if something happens in a small town, they're like, well, you can't sue that town. They're just not worth anything. But that town, boy, if something happens in that town, I will hit you up and I can sue them, because this
is what they mean by more money, more problems.
Yep. That's for sure.
When I say they, I mean Biggie Smalls.
So Warrior Presents Helenex. What's up, Helenex? Love you, brother. Everyone in chat, hope everyone's well. Gonna listen while I travel back to work. Helenex is on a lunch break. Warrior Man, Star Wars Galaxy Heroes misses you.
That time
I don't think Star Wars Galaxy Heroes misses me. I think the community misses me.
Well, you still have your streams once a week.
Ray Rock. Hello, Helenex, my Spartan brother from another mother. Yeah, I heard Arnold got banned, one of his accounts. Question.
He has a question.
Propelli. A lot of cops in New York decided to stop doing their jobs due to the backlash, and they seem that they can't win regardless of what they do. That's true. 600 are going to quit. 300 are still in the hospital. What happens when nobody wants to be a cop anymore? Good question. I can't answer
Anarchy,
that.
Maybe.
I can't answer that. What I can answer is what's going to happen is when there are jobs, there are people willing to do the job, especially people that think they can do it, but it's because of the wrong reason. Have you ever been like, oh, I want to be an actor, but you don't really. You want the lifestyle, or you think you want the lifestyle. Yeah. And like, So there are some cops that are like, I want to be a cop because I want a badge and a gun. I want to be able to beat up on people. That's the wrong person to hire. Everyone knows it, right? Yeah. But that's the people we filter out or we try when we hire, right? I mean, you try to hire the right person and you try to filter those idiots out. In fact, when I applied for my job, there were 800 applicants. They hired 8 of us.
Wow, 800.
800. They hired 8 of us.
Was that a 3%? Success rate?
That's a 10%.
Oh, 10%, yeah.
10% made it. I don't know. Something like that. 1%.
1%.
1%. Well, I don't know.
That's not even a good percent.
Do the math. I don't know, man.
I don't do math.
I can't do math in my head.
What?
So, but anyway, it was a small percentage. Almost nobody made it. I mean, it was 8 of us. It was supposed to be 5. But there was such good candidates, they decided that they were going to add. They added 3 more officers to the payroll. They did 8 total, and they just couldn't decide, so they did 8 of us. So yeah. So anyway, they hired 8 of us, and that was good. And I got hired on, but there was 800. There was a lot of people that thought they wanted to be a cop, and they definitely should not have been a law enforcement officer.
And sometimes it takes more than one try.
When those individuals, those 8 that you filter down and get to. When one of those 8 are bad, but they make it through, and then they do it the next year, and one of those 8 are bad and get through, and so now you got 16 cops, and 2 out of those 16 maybe are not the best, and then the next year, and the next year, and next year, and you have this police force, right? And you got maybe that 3% that aren't so good, but you don't know they're not good until an incident occurs where it reveals itself, and you're like, you shouldn't be here.
It only takes one.
Yeah, but anyway, when those people are gone,
1%.
Then you're left with the other 800 that should never have been accepted. That's now your pool of candidates.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just depletes the workforce to the people that you pretty much wish you didn't have to begin with. Yeah. So that's what you get.
But when it becomes a non-desirable job, you're going to end up with really non-desirable people, doing that job.
Yeah, Dark Guyver says, thanks for acknowledging that. I really appreciate it. I do realize everyone's different. Not all people are just bad. It's just not everyone is good. For sure.
We all have tendencies for both.
Yeah, we all have experiences, my friend, and every experience is valid. Warrior, this is a Star Wars question because you can weigh on it because you haven't been playing. What are your thoughts on Arnold's account getting banned? I just spoke about it earlier. I just think it's stupid, for sure. A lot of cops will be getting early retirement route. Yeah. 1%. It's 1%, Zevis.
Yeah,
Zevis says.
1%.
Take the 1% interest. It's caught on camera. I would say 3% just because the data proves that there's a eventuality of a 3%. At some point in their career, there is a poor decision made that eventually leads a cop down a bad decision. And I'll tell you, good cops can become bad in a heartbeat because of a bad decision made. And that sucks because people don't understand. As a law enforcement officer, you could be a really, really good guy, really good girl, really good guy, doing everything right, and then you're in a bad situation and you make a really bad call. In the moment, just
boom.
And now you're going to be judged for the rest of your life. And it will look really bad. And you'll be judged as a bad cop for the rest of your life. And you know what? You may not be a bad cop, but you will be a bad cop because the situation that transpired
it's magnified.
Will get magnified, and for the rest of your life, you'll be known as a bad cop. So that's just, it's called being human. You're right. But that's unfortunately, you'll be judged for the rest of your life. And that you just, as a police officer, you just can't ever make a mistake, period.
It's tough.
Because if you do, it'll be magnified and forever. Yeah. So time for story time. I'm sorry. Questions are over. It's, right. I'm going to tell you a story. This is my scenario. So you guys got to listen to all of it. You got to listen to all of it. You got to hear it out. No judging. Please hear the whole thing. And then, and it's just to prove a point because it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's just an interesting story. So I have this friend growing up for the first 10 years of my life. I lived in Lincoln, Nebraska. Okay.
Bill, Nebraska.
Yep. Lincoln, Nebraska. And so, I'm going to tell a story and you guys are going to hear this. Okay. So hold on.
Yeah. I already got you.
Yeah.
It feels weird though with the big opening. Like, look at my bald
okay. So I had 2 best friends. It was me and my brother and these 2 best friends growing up for the first 10 years. And these 2 best friends, they had a single mom. I'm gonna mess this story up. I can already tell you.
Well, you've already kind of talked about it, but let's not talk about it. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Just do the story.
Okay. So anyway, went to their house. Really good guys. Grew up. They were my best friends, and I'm just gonna tell the story in theory. Okay. So there's these two groups of people. You guys can decide for yourself. There's two groups of people. There's this group of person over here, and there's this group of person over here, and this family over here is a white family, and this white family has a mother and a father. It's 2 kids, 2 brothers, and they're well off. They live in an upscale neighborhood, and they're physically fit. They're in good shape.
Athletic.
Dad's got a really great job, and this family, single mom, two boys. They're not in the best shape, but I mean they're not out of shape, but they're not in the best shape. Live in a outlier neighborhood, not so good neighborhood. They're poor, and these 2 black kids have just a single mom. They don't have a dad. So these white kids and these black kids become friends. They hang out every day for 10 years. Best friends. They don't see color. So they're friends every day. Well, their parents aren't friends because the white people don't want to associate with the black mom. It's terrible, right? And the white kids from this family with the mom and dad, the black kids come over to have dinner, but the white dad says, I can't have these black kids in my house, so you got to go down to the basement. You got to go down to the basement with these kids. I can't have my friends seeing these black kids up in the kitchen. It's not right. Just go downstairs with them. So the white kids take them downstairs and hang out with them every day because they're best friends. The kids don't understand. So these white kids take their best friends, these black kids, downstairs and hang out every day downstairs. But they can't hang out upstairs. They can't have dinners with them. They can't do any of that. They go to school every day together. They're best friends. They ride their bikes together. They can go to the black friends' house and hang out with the mom all they want. And they can have dinner all they want over there.
No problem.
Yeah. When they grow up, the black family moves away.
Better job for the dad?
What's that? No, the black family, the single mom, black family moves away because they need a job. They're in poverty and they need a better job. And the black mom finds a job elsewhere and moves away.
Yeah.
But they keep contact with this white family because they love each other, right?
Sure.
And blood's thicker than water. And these brothers love each other. This black and white kids, these 2 brothers. And the thing is, their birthdays are almost identical. And
nice.
Yeah, and so they're best friends. As they grow up through middle school and high school, they keep talking. And they find out that these white kids, they get full ride scholarships to college.
Oh, nice.
Because of athletics. Happens. They also find out that through the athletics and everything like that, that they end up getting degrees, and both of them end up placing good jobs and stuff like that.
Just like their parents.
Yeah. These black kids over here go into another school. They get bullied, actually. Really bullied really bad, especially the younger brother. He gets bullied really bad, so bad that he just doesn't have any friends in middle school. And then in high school, he focuses on his stuff. He ends up deciding to go into the military because he's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And the other one ends up getting in a lot of trouble and ended up going into prison.
Yeah.
So it's really sad. It's like the story of kind of black America, and it's really sad. And it's like, it's kind of unfair. Whatever one has to go into the military, to do anything. And the other one gets prison time.
Still a good decision.
And the single mom, working to try and make ends meet. It's just sad. She's proud though. She's real proud. She's a good mom. She never takes public assistance. She's a really wonderful mom. And this over here, this white family, they maintain everything, but they had everything. They had privilege. They had family privilege. They had parent privilege. They had 2 parents. They had money privilege. They had physicality privilege because they were both really in shape. They had the scholarship privilege, the education privilege. So I tell this story because this story is my story. This is literally my life. But the story is actually this one. I am the black people in the story. And the black people are Kamar and John, my black buddies, who I was very, 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 very bestie buddies growing up in Lincoln, Nebraska. Kamar and John, amazing, amazing, amazing men.
You ever watch your live stream?
No, they don't. No, they're too busy in life. But Kamar and John,
Come on, guys,
and their mom and dad. I love their mom and dad to death, but Kamar and John's dad is exceptionally racist. He does not like me and Andy, my Andrew, my brother. He was so racist, he wouldn't let us eat with them. He wouldn't let us be upstairs. He wouldn't let us sit on the couch. They had a 2-parent family. Both of them were very physically fit. They both got to go to college. Because they had a dad, they had more money. They lived in a better house. Mm-hmm. They both got to go full ride scholarship to college because of their athletic scholarships. They had every privilege growing up. I didn't have. My mom was a single mom raising 3 kids. We were poor. We had to move to find a better job because we couldn't find anything. We had to move across country. We destroyed the only car we had. We showed up at the new place with no car. My mom had to walk to work every day until she could afford a POS car.
POS.
My brother, fell into, with no dad, fell into, the rigmarole that happens with a fatherless home. Yeah. And ended up in jail and then eventually prison. And I'm sorry, I don't want to throw him under the bus. It happens. He knows it. It's part of his story.
He's not here tonight,
but it's also part of his victory. My brother's victory is strong, and that's a story I'd love for him to tell. Yeah. Because my brother's story of victory is one of no victimization. Has Andrew ever been on your live stream before? Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. I thought so. Yes. And his story is one of, I'm not going to be a victim, but, and then me, I ended up going into the military. In my middle school, I got picked on bad when I moved here. Yeah. You told me that, really and I couldn't believe it, honestly. Yeah. Yes. And the reason why I look the way I look is because I had to go into working out because I was the skinniest, scrawniest, littlest kid in school and got picked on. I got picked on by like everybody, man. I had like developmentally disabled kids making fun of me. I was like, what? This sucks. So I had to do that. But the thing that people have to understand is we all have a story. Every story is not invalid. Yeah. And people want to say that their story is invalid, but I believe there are people with the story that I just told, where the people of color, they come up in a hardship. They come up in that hardship. But there's also stories like mine where I came up in that hardship. Yeah. Their story's valid. And their stories where their story doesn't invalidate mine. No. My story is just as valid. My friend's story of privilege, I have white friends that have the same story of privilege. But my black friends, Kamar and John's story of privilege is no less valid than theirs. Right. But you know what the difference was? What's the difference between my story and theirs? Kamar and John and their success and mine? I believe that they had a father in their lives. And a fatherless child it's just sad that that has to happen at all. That is the number one denominator for success or failure in any child's life in this world is fatherlessness. Statistics prove it. Look it up. But guess what? You became a stepfather and a really good biological father as well. Well, I wanted to be that which I never had. Exactly. And I didn't choose to be a victim or play the victim card. So just remember, stories are valid. Everyone lives an experience. Be empathetic and listen and know that everybody's story is valid. If someone's saying this is the way it is, that's the way it is for them. Yeah. That's how it feels to them. Listen to them. Hear them out. Yeah. It's valid because it's their experience. Don't invalidate their experience because your experience is different. But your experience is just as valid as theirs. There's no way we're going to get forward with the whole situation if we can't unify, and there's no way we're going to unify. Find common ground, people. If we cannot find empathy for each other, we have to empathize, we have to unify, and we have to become one. And then, and only then, can we tackle the government and their bloated spending and start to fix what is wrong with the government. And the government is more than just a police department. The government is what is wrong. We need to take a hard look at everything from how they spend money to the different departments to how they influence elections to how they spend money, how they transfer from one to another, how long they get to sit in the Senate seats. 46 years? Are you
Pretty
kidding
ridiculous lifestyle.
8 years max, man. Come on.
Yeah.
They should not get a retirement. They should do it for 8 years, be paid for 8 years, and then leave. It's my opinion. There should be a lot of reform, but we can't. Dude, if these protests were actually unified and formulated to change government, 4 years from now, this country would be another place, would be a totally different place. It would be amazing. So I hope, anyway, for the few people that are listening, it is one of those things that changes things. Call says, true, I didn't have a father. It was a struggle. Definitely got on the wrong crowd for a while. It happened to my brother. And you know what? Having an older brother helped because I watched his struggle, and watching him helped me to kind of realize that was the wrong path. Yeah. And I wanted to try to not do that. So you can choose which path you go.
Sure.
You can,
and you can change it halfway through.
We had a fatherless home, and my brother chose one path. I chose another. You can do either path. That's the thing. But statistics prove fathers in the home, the success rate for the children drastically increases.
It may be
Fatherless
frustrating.
homes, they drastically decrease. It doesn't mean you can't succeed. It just means that you're up against a wall, and it's going to be much, much, much more difficult. And that's not to take anything away from mothers, because trust me, my mom is a super mom. I would put my mom up against anyone. Single mom, raising 3 kids, never took a penny from federal assistance or state assistance, never got free food, free money, never did anything like that. She worked multiple jobs. She walked to her job in the winter, uphill both ways. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, like she literally walked to work. I mean, my mom is a freaking superhero.
Yeah.
She's a superhero. My mom is everything. She did everything for us. She sacrificed everything. Do you know my mom is still paying on a credit card? The same credit card that she used to swipe when I was a junior to buy a racket so I could play tennis, because she wanted me to have the privilege of being able to play a sport. And so she bought a racket. She's still paying on that.
And I never got
It's like 24 years later, my mom is still paying on a racket.
It's ridiculous. And how expensive was that racket?
Well, it's a part of a debt
I know.
that she had to accumulate to raise us.
I get that.
It's one of those things. I want to help finish getting that gone because I owe her that.
Right.
I do. I owe her everything. Moms are amazing. Especially single moms that have no ability to burden what life has to give them. So you guys, the lesson here is you got to be empathetic. You have to listen, because you're right, but so are they. Everybody has to listen to everybody. Thank you guys all for coming out. I appreciate all of you. As always, keep your gaming on. Love yourself, but love everybody else more. As always, see you later. Thanks, Artisan K, for coming on.
Yeah, it was nice being here.